Robots, job loss or human expansion? Yesterday we looked at the physical AI stack. Sensors. World models. Simulation. Edge compute. Actuators. Safety. Today the question becomes human. If robots finally move from demo videos into factories, warehouses, hospitals, and logistics halls, what happens to work? Do robots take jobs? Or do they expand the human worker? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Both can happen. The difference is not the robot. The difference is the system around the robot. The wrong question. The public debate usually asks one simple question. Will this robot replace a person? But a job is not one thing. A job is a bundle of tasks. Some tasks are repetitive. Some are physical. Some are dangerous. Some require judgment. Some require trust. Some require context. Some require a person to notice that the situation is no longer normal. Robots rarely replace a profession in one clean move. First they cut pieces out of the job. They take the task that repeats. The lift that hurts the back. The reach that requires a ladder. The part that must be placed the same way thousands of times. The box that must be scanned, sorted, and moved again and again. And once those pieces are removed, the remaining human work changes. Sometimes it becomes better. Sometimes it becomes weaker. That is the real question. Not robot or human? But what part of the job is being automated, and what happens to the human after that? The BMW signal. BMW and Figure AI have now given the market a very clear signal. This is no longer only a lab story. BMW says Figure 03 is being demonstrated at Plant Spartanburg for a logistics sequencing workflow. Figure describes the task in human terms. Parts do not arrive in perfect orientations, bins and carts are not always in exactly the same place. The robot must use both hands, adjust its body, step, balance and correct small errors as the situation changes. That matters. Because factory work is not only repetition. It is repetition plus variation. The part is slightly shifted. The cart is not aligned. The container is messy. The next movement depends on the last one. For decades, traditional automation worked best when the world could be made predictable. Fixed robot arm. Fixed path. Fixed part. Fixed fixture. But humanoid robots and physical AI are being aimed at the places where the world is less clean. That is why the job loss conversation becomes more serious now. If robots can handle variation, they move closer to real human task space. What the robot is actually taking. In BMW's case, the first target is not the worker. The target is a task class. Monotonous work. Ergonomically difficult work. Safety-critical work. Sequencing. Lifting. Reaching. Sorting. Precise placement. These are not small things. They are real labor. They are also the parts of labor that often damage the body. So the optimistic story is easy to understand. If the robot takes the exhausting repetition, the human can move towards supervision, planning, quality control, maintenance, exception handling, and process improvement. The human stops being only a pair of hands. The human becomes the operator of a small machine ecosystem. That is the expansion story. But there is also a darker version. If the company uses the robot only to reduce headcount, remove bargaining power and keep the productivity gains at the top, the same technology becomes a labor compression machine. The robot does not decide which future happens. Management does. Incentives do. Labor policy does. Training budgets do. The structure around the robot decides whether automation becomes expansion or extraction. The Amazon signal. Amazon gives another version of the same story. The company says it has deployed its 1 millionth robot and introduced DeepFleet, a generative AI foundation model that coordinates robot movement across its fulfillment network. That is not one robot replacing one worker. That is a robotic operating layer. A fleet. A traffic system. A logistics nervous system. Amazon also says more than 700,000 employees have been upskilled through training programs, and that advanced robotics at a next-generation fulfillment center requires more reliability, maintenance, and engineering roles. This is the part people often miss. Automation removes some kinds of work. But it also creates work around the automation itself. Someone must maintain the robot. Someone must monitor the fleet. Someone must diagnose the failure. Someone must redesign the workflow. Someone must decide when the system is wrong. Someone must train the edge case. Someone must translate the messy physical world into instructions a machine can execute. The question is whether the worker is given a path into that layer. If yes, robotics becomes a ladder. If not, robotics becomes a wall. The labor market is not simple. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025 projects major disruption by 2030, many jobs created, many displaced, and a net positive number only if skills and transitions are handled seriously. The same report says the skills gap is already the main barrier for employers. That is the real bottleneck. Not only robots. Transition. The International Federation of Robotics shows the physical trend from another angle. Robot adoption is still expanding globally. Industrial robot installations have more than doubled over 10 years, and service robots are growing as companies respond to staff shortages, logistics pressure, aging populations, and the need for safer work. So the direction is clear. More robots. More AI in machines. More automation in warehouses, factories, hospitals, farms, and public spaces. But the meaning is not fixed. The future of labor is not written only in robot shipments. It is written in who gets trained. Who gets displaced. Who owns the productivity. Who supervises the machine. Who becomes invisible. And who gets promoted into the new layer. Doomer version. The doomer version is not stupid. It sees something real. If robots become cheaper, more capable, and easier to deploy, many repetitive jobs will come under pressure. Not because companies are evil by default. Because incentives are simple. If a task can be done 24 hours a day with less fatigue, fewer injuries, lower variance, and predictable cost, the financial pressure to automate becomes strong. That can reduce entry-level jobs. It can weaken low-skill bargaining power. It can make the workplace more monitored. It can turn human workers into exception handlers for machines without giving them more status or pay. It can create a world where the person remains responsible, but the system controls the pace. That is a real risk. A worker can be augmented on the slide deck and exhausted on the floor. This is why the word augmentation is not enough. We have to ask. Augmented into what? A better role? Or a tighter cage? Bloomer version. The Bloomer version is also not naive. It sees another real thing. Some work should not remain human just because it has always been human. Carrying heavy parts all day is not sacred. Climbing ladders to pick warehouse items is not a spiritual achievement. Repeating dangerous motions until the body breaks is not dignity. If robots can remove the worst parts of physical labor, that is progress. But only if the human is not discarded with the task. The best version of robotics creates new roles. Robot supervisor. Fleet operator. Maintenance technician. Robot safety coordinator. Workflow designer. Process data analyst. Simulation trainer. Quality auditor. Human-robot interaction specialist. Edge case investigator. These roles are not science fiction. They are the natural shadow of automation. Every machine that acts in the real world creates a new need for supervision, repair, integration, safety, and judgment. Robots remove some manual work. They increase the value of people who understand the whole process. The new human premium. So what becomes valuable? Not just strength. Not just repetition. Not just speed. The new premium is context. Can you understand the workflow? Can you see where the robot fails? Can you explain the edge case? Can you improve the process? Can you protect safety? Can you judge when the machine is technically correct but operationally wrong? Can you manage several agents, robots, or automated systems at once? This is the same pattern we have seen across the whole modern human series. AI makes execution cheaper. Context becomes more valuable. In robotics, this becomes physical. The person who only repeats the same movement is vulnerable. The person who understands the system around the movement becomes more important. That is the shift. From labor as motion to labor as orchestration. The main conclusion. Robots will take jobs if society treats workers as replaceable parts. Robots will expand humans if society treats workers as people who can move up the stack. The technology can support both futures. That is why the debate cannot stop at fear or hype. The real question is not whether robots are coming. They are already coming. The real question is, who gets to grow with them? The worker who is trained to supervise the robot becomes stronger. The worker who is left outside the transition becomes weaker. The company that uses robots only to cut cost may become efficient but fragile. The company that uses robots to amplify people may become adaptive. Robots do not automatically destroy the human role. They destroy the old price of repetitive execution. And they raise the value of judgment, context, safety, maintenance, coordination, and responsibility. So the future of work is not robot versus human. It is low-context work versus high-context work. Hands versus systems. Repetition versus orchestration. And the most important question for every worker, founder and company is simple. When the robot enters your workflow, do you become smaller? Or do you become the person who knows how to command the new machine layer? AI #robotics #physical AI #future of work #automation #modern human